Hi, I'm Tim Reed with the Acton School News, and I'm here today with Larry King, Superintendent King. We're going to talk about the bond today, a bit of a hot button topic in the community. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Sure.
How are schools funded so that they can maintain and modernize their facilities?
So I appreciate your time on, and I guess the first thing I'd want to share is that it's really important that the community know I'm not speaking today as a get out and vote yes on bond measure CK. This really is informational. I want the community to understand why the staff made the recommendation they did for this specific bond, and why the board took action on that based on staff's recommendation. So I'm going to share information and opinions about how we got here, but it truly is not a go out and vote yes on Measure CK. This is information so that the community can make an informed decision. Is truly how I approach it. Okay, so schools are funded based on three types of funding sources: the general fund, Fund 14, which we refer to as our deferred maintenance account, and then Fund 40. So in our general fund, we have funds that pay for our personnel costs, so our custodians, our skilled maintenance workers, our supervisors for maintenance, and those funds add up to a total of $700,000. The personnel costs account for about $330,000. The other $370,000 go for contracted services. So for instance, services that we can't provide with our own personnel, we might have to contract outside for. Also goes for supplies that we use for cleaning, replacing a pipe, a leaky pipe, or an outlet, or lighting, those sorts of things. So the general fund, again, we budget about $700,000 a year for that. Next fund we go to is the deferred maintenance. So that's for projects that are a little bit larger. So in that fund, we budget approximately $325,000. $150,000 of that goes towards what we call a debt service account. So we have some outstanding debt from a prior repair that we budget $150,000 for, and the other $175,000 goes toward projects that are a little bit larger than everyday maintenance. So this might go towards roof replacement, replacing, if you're doing like home repairs at your house, it'd be like replacing a kitchen sink, replacing carpeting, flooring, exterior painting, items such as that. We often refer to these as summer projects. So when we have students that aren't in school and staff is off campus in the summer, we can get to some of the larger projects that have come under deferred maintenance. In the last account, Fund 40, is our capital improvement. So that would be for larger projects. And again, using your home as an example, this would be if you were going to remodel your house, or do a room addition, or remodel the kitchen. Large projects like that for a school district, we put funds in Fund 40. We had $700,000 in that account. We took those funds and put it towards contingencies for Phase 3. So I'm giving you a long answer to your first question. I don't think the other ones will be as lengthy, but I'm trying to give some background information on the funding to properly answer the question. So Phase 3 at Vasquez High School, the board did such a good job handling those funds, and with the bond oversight committee, making sure that all the funds went exactly where they're supposed to for Phase 3 of Vasquez High School, that there was a surplus of $2 million left over. That $2 million could only be used towards Vasquez High School, and only for the projects that the Division of State Architects had approved. So we began Phase 3. Because of their fiduciary responsibilities being handled so well, they finished Phase 1, which was the high school. They finished Phase 2, which was the gym. And they began Phase 3, which was the girls' softball field, concession stands, restrooms, walking track. So all of that work is almost completed, actually. They're putting in the sod, the shrubberies, the last final steps. And so we took that $700,000 from Fund 40 and used that as contingency money for the $2 million, which was not fully enough to complete the project if something went wrong. It was exactly enough if everything went exactly as planned and correct. But it's called change orders, and so you need money for contingencies and change orders should something need to be addressed. And so the $700,000 is sitting over it with the Vasquez High School funding at the moment, but we anticipate that there'll be a surplus from that money that we'll put back into Fund 40 for larger capital improvement projects. It certainly isn't enough to do the large projects that the bond would be for.
All right, so what do you expect the bond to accomplish, and what is the project list?
Sure. So we expect the bond to do the big items that Fund 40 and our deferred maintenance account and our general fund cannot do. So one of the things that I was first asked to look at when I was hired was Acton School. There was a strong interest by the community in reopening Acton School. Acton School is a costly project, and so there is a full project list that's laid out very clearly, and the plans are already completed. Those plans have been submitted to the Division of State Architects, and so that project list is very clear. But the itemized project list for Acton School is about $2.3 to $2.7 million. Now, there was some talk of doing a smaller bond, which I'll get to a little bit later, as to why the larger bond, but that would be one project list. The $400,000 that I talked about in Fund 40 isn't nearly enough to complete Acton School. Then we have 3 other schools that are in need of repairs, and so fairly substantial repairs in some cases. So Acton School, then AADUSD, that's still a property that we own, even though we don't have students there. AADUSD School is there, one of our charters, and it's still our property, so we need to take good care of it. We have High Desert and Meadowlark. Those schools are approximately 30 years old each. There's issues over after 30 years that are going to develop. So we have fields that are in need of repair that need to be redone. We're actually doing athletics now at our middle school, and so to get the fields to be done would be fabulous. Asphalt at our school sites that are a little bit older, those need to be resurfaced. We have roofs that are in need of repair and possibly replacement. We have HVAC systems that are in need of repair and replacement. We have floors that are in need of replacement. So there's a myriad of issues with those 3 school sites that are in a very specific project list, as is Acton School, as is Vasquez High School, and people can find that information by going on the bond website. There's links right on the website that go towards that. And the link to the website is AAD Measure CK 2018.com. Again, AAD Measure CK 2018.com. And on that you will find links to the specific project lists and costs involved with those projects.
All right, excellent. So what will the bond cost to the average homeowner?
So if you own a home that's the assessed value, so when I talk about the assessed value, I'm talking about the county tax assessor's office assesses the value of your home at $421,000. That's the average assessed value of homes, and I'm stressing that because as compared to your appraised or market value of your home, which oftentimes is considerably higher than the assessed value. If the assessed value of your home is $421,000, it would cost that homeowner approximately $1.19 per week. So from that you can kind of extrapolate out both ways. So if your home was worth close to $1 million, the bond would cost you about $2.40 per week. On the flip side, if your home was worth half of the $421,000, so if you had something worth $210,000, again on the assessed value, then you're looking at about 60 cents per week. So that's the cost to homeowners. Just some ballpark numbers to give people an idea of what it would cost them. And we have the third, I believe it's the third lowest bond rate in the entire county. We have an exceptionally good bond rate right now.
All right, so, how much funds will the district be entitled to if it passes?
So we went out for a $7.5 million bond. We recommended that to the board. As staff, we made that recommendation based on a couple of things. One is that we didn't want to come back to the community, you know, a short time later. We didn't want to go out for a very small bond right now. And so at one point, as rest in peace, Larry Layton had shared that he had a very strong opinion that we should only do the $3 million bond. And so we made, eventually we had 4 options narrowed down to 2 options. The $3 million bond and a $7.5 million bond. The staff recommended $7.5 million because that covers all 5 schools. We'll be able to take good care of our 5 schools with those bond monies, and so the other. So let me stay there just for a moment. So those $7.5 million would allow us to finish modernizing Acton School, reopen the school, take care of the project list for High Desert, Metal Art, Agua Dulce, and complete phase 3 at Vasquez High School, which has been the plan for a long time, to complete those plans there, which include tennis courts, lighting standards, and basketball courts. So that's where the funds would go to. Now, those funds also include $3 million for state matching funds. So the other reason we made the recommendation of $7.5 million is anything less than that, and we're not going to be able to access all of those $3 million, which taxpayers have essentially already paid into. The funds for state matching are already sitting with the state. Our consultants, CFW, Caldwell, Flores, and Winters, have already indicated to the Board of Education and staff that they're fairly certain that they know those funds are there, and they're fairly certain that we're so early in the game, we'll be able to access those $3 million. So we built those into the plans for our school sites, and that gives us a total of $10.5 million to complete those projects.
All right, so how do the funds break down per site?
Okay, so for Acton School, it's roughly $2.27 million. For Agua Dulce, it's $1.68 million. For Metal Arc and High Desert, those are the 2 school sites that qualify for the state matching funds. So in the case of Metal Arc, they would get $1.29 million plus an additional $1.94 million from state matching funds.
Wow.
The reason that they get those funds is because they're an older school. They have students currently at that school, and so that school is available to receive state matching funds. High Desert would get $0.8 million plus an additional $1.21 million from the state. That again, if the bond doesn't pass, we don't get those state matching funds. So we'll be leaving $3 million on the table if the bond doesn't pass, that taxpayers have already paid into. So High Desert would get $0.8 million plus $1.21 million, and then Vasquez High School would be $1.2 million funds going towards the completion of that project. So that's how it plays out per site for the dollar amount.
All right, so could we reopen Acton School if the bond doesn't pass?
So if the bond does not pass, based on the financial landscape as we know it currently, and there's no reason to think that it's going to become significantly better, meaning that we don't see a large influx of funds coming to the district over the next several years, we would not be able to open Acton School. The $400,000 that I spoke of earlier is not, it's barely 25% of what we would need to reopen the school. So we would have to set aside funds every year. We'd have to get approval from the board, authority from the board to make a plan. Okay, what is our plan now that the bond didn't pass? Do we still want to open Acton School? And if so, how much do we want to set aside each year? For example, if we set aside $50,000 a year, it would take roughly 20 years before Acton School could be open. So it would be quite a while before we'd be able to reopen the school.
All right, so what does the bond mean for students and the community?
Well, if you go to that website, which again is AADMeasureCK2018.com, there's students and staff and parents that speak about what the bond does for them, what it means to them as community folks and as employees. It means a lot, it means a lot. And I want to thank the community for their prior support of the bond that allowed us to do phase 1, phase 2, and begin phase 3 at the high school. If anybody out there would like to come and tour the high school, I'd be happy to show them, or any of our school sites for that matter. But I really commend the community for coming through in that previous bond, and what it's done for the high school is absolutely tremendous. And I'd be happy to walk with you too, Tim. You went to school here. The students talk about how much they love their new gym, they love their new classrooms, the culinary class, the technology, the chemistry class. There's so much state-of-the-art supplies, materials available, and classroom structure that it makes it a great place to learn. Also on that website is a link between how students feel about their facilities and the school that they go to, and student achievement. Students want to feel good about the schools they're attending. So when you ask, what does this do for students and community? For students, I can't even begin to tell you the number of benefits and positive outcomes there are for students in terms of feeling good about their facilities, and not to mention campus safety. We'll be able to install video cameras and look at the entrances for our sites, how to make those safer. We all have seen the horrible crisis that other schools have endured in terms of terrorist threats, and these monies would allow us to address the safety needs of our students too, to an extent that our current budget would make it very difficult to. So that's a huge piece for our students in terms of learning, the academics, and the safety, and then extracurriculars. It would bring to students the ability to play sports, to have fields that don't have ruts in them, that are really nice, where they can run the mile at the middle school without having to think about tripping and that sort of thing. And same with our asphalt at our different sites. So there's those benefits. And then for the community, I just say a couple of different things. One is that when you are able to increase the aesthetic, the safety, the academic aspects of a school facility, that's good for everybody. Everybody can feel good about having great schools in their neighborhood, great schools in their area. Even if you don't have school-age children, it can often increase the property value. When real estate agents come through, they often have questions from new people moving in. What are your schools like? Can you show me your schools? Can we drive by them? So I think there's a lot of benefits towards that end of things. And then the other thing I would want the community to know is that we want to open up these new facilities for community use. So with the new walking track at the high school, it's beautiful. It's not a standard quarter-mile track. It's a practice track for students for running, but it's a walking track as well. So we could open that up on the evenings and mornings and weekends for our community, and to walk up there, at kind of the peak of the high school and look at the mountains around the area in Acton is tremendous. They could use our tennis courts. If the bond passed, we would work out with the community, how they would be able to sign up and use the tennis courts, and that would be a great opportunity, I think. And same for the basketball courts, for families, for students, community members to come and use our basketball courts and be able to access that whole sports complex area on the weekends, evenings, mornings. We'd be happy to work that out for the community. So hopefully, if there's any other questions from you or from community members about the financials, about the benefits, about the use of the facilities, if anybody again would like to tour any of our campuses, I'd be happy to take folks around and show them the kind of things that we're doing up at the high school, but also show them the needs of our other schools, and we could walk those grounds. They could see for themselves where the needs are. So I really appreciate all the support from the community in prior years in terms of the bond that was passed 10 years ago, and hopefully this one will pass as well, but we'll see. We'll see. I want the community to have this information. I appreciate your questions and your time, and thank you so much.
All right, no problem. So the last question.
Sure.
What accountability measures are put in place to ensure the bond funds are expended in accordance with the project list?
So a couple of different things, and that's a great question. One is there's a bond oversight committee that will be put in place. That bond oversight committee has very specific roles that each member plays. It's a 7-member committee. Somebody must have a local business in the area to be on that committee. Somebody needs to be a senior citizen. Somebody needs to have experience as a tax reporter. So there's a variety of roles that those 7 folks play. The job of that bond oversight committee, is to ensure that the dollars spent are exactly what the district had indicated the monies would be used for according to the project list. Additionally, you have the Board of Education. So those two entities work hand in hand to ensure that proper oversight is taking place and that the fiscal expenditures being approved by the Board of Education are in line with the plan and with the project list. And then I'd say the third component, or the third part of that checks and balances, is staff. You know, we have a tremendous administrative team. I'm really proud of our Assistant Superintendent of Business, Lynn David. She does an incredible job of making sure that our district has remained solvent, and she'll continue to do so. And so that's kind of another part of the checks and balances. And of course, I'm not going to jeopardize my own career by taking those funds and doing something that's not in line with the project list and with discussions we've had with the board, and in the future the bond oversight committee. So hopefully that kind of lets people again know in a nutshell the checks and balances that are in place to ensure fiscal accountability. But again, if anybody has further questions or would like to discuss that further, or aren't sure how things were funded in the past, I'd be happy to discuss any of those things.
All right, great. So is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
No, again, I just appreciate your time and appreciate all the hard work that our bond committee is doing at the moment. There are a lot of volunteers working very hard, and I appreciate the work of staff. They're working extra hard right now during the last month and moving forward through election season. So, no, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I guess I'll just close by saying I've been here just about a year. I love working here every day. I still enjoy coming to work. I still go home with a smile on my face. So I'm happy to serve the community of Acton AADUSD, and I've just made some really good connections with staff, students, families, and parents here and employees. So we're really happy to be here. So thank you, Tim.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll see you next time.
Got it.